Pop quiz. If World War II had a character selection screen, who would be the most broken build?
Today we are skipping the generals, skipping the speeches, and going straight to the people who fought like rejected video game characters. First rule, this is not a ranking of morality. It is a ranking of how absurdly overpowered the historical story sounds.
Player 1, Leo Major, Canadian scout, one eye, zero fear, apparently balanced by absolutely nothing.
Player 2, Wojtek, a literal bear in the Polish army. Yes, the bear is playable. No, I am not taking questions yet.
Player 3, Michael Wittmann, dangerous tank commander, propaganda favorite, and absolutely not here for hero worship.
We are judging impossible stories, not endorsing causes. Courage, myth, propaganda, and one heavily armed bear are all on the menu.
Let us start with Leo Major, the one-eyed scout whose biography reads like somebody forgot to patch the stealth mechanics. Most people lose depth perception and reconsider life choices. Leo lost an eye and apparently unlocked nightmare mode.
Stealth? Illegal. Nerve? Illegal. Sense of self-preservation? Apparently uninstalled.
At the Battle of the Scheldt, the story gets so ridiculous it sounds like a stealth mission designed by a bored teenager. He sneaks forward alone because apparently squad mates were optional DLC. First he captures a patrol, normal enough. Then the story looks at normal and throws it into a ditch. Then the prisoner line keeps growing because Leo appears to be farming experience points in real life.
Reported number, 93 prisoners.
Which is not a capture, that is a subscription service.
The funny part is the number. The serious part is how close this all is to disaster at every second. Because war does not care if your story sounds cool. It can still turn the next second into panic.
Achtung, down!
He brings them back, and somewhere in the paperwork, a clerk probably stared at the report like the pen had betrayed him.
Leo Major build update. Stealth sniper with enemy capture multiplier. Completely unbalanced.
But the mission that turns Leo into legend begins with another scout, Willie Arsenault, his friend. April 1945. Zwolle is still occupied, and 2 scouts are sent forward to probe the city. This is the part every action story forgets. The legend begins with 2 people, not 1. Then the mission breaks. Willie Arsenault is hit, and the game suddenly stops feeling like a game. Leo loses his friend, and that grief becomes the fuse for one of the strangest liberation stories of the war.
Most people would wait for orders. Leo decides the city is now his personal side quest.
New status effect unlocked. Grief-fueled one-man psychological warfare.
He enters Zwolle alone, which is usually the part where the tutorial tells you to bring a squad. He starts making noise in different places, turning one man into the audio equivalent of an army. Ha! This is not just bravery. This is tactical gaslighting with explosives.
The Germans do not know how many attackers are in the city, which is the point, because the answer is embarrassingly Canadian.
Leo is basically playing stealth, deception, and demolition at the same time with no save point. He even spreads the idea that a bigger Canadian force is arriving, because sometimes the most powerful weapon is panic wearing a uniform. And the bluff works. The occupation starts backing out of town because one man convinced them the lobby was full. By dawn, Zwolle is breathing differently. Not safe yet, not untouched, but no longer trapped in the same way. The legend says he liberated Zwolle almost single-handedly. The confirmed story is already ridiculous enough without polishing it into a superhero movie.
Verdict: Leo Major is the kind of character players accuse of hacking after round 1.
But remember the cost. The legend is loud because the grief behind it is quiet. A broken build, yes, but also a reminder that real courage usually arrives carrying real loss.
And now, because history refuses to behave, our next playable character is a bear.
Wojtek enters the roster, and already the balancing team has quit.
Wojtek begins not as a weapon, but as a bear cub found far from the front and adopted by Polish soldiers on a long road through war. The soldiers feed him, raise him, and somehow decide that the correct response to war trauma is shared custody of a bear. He grows up among soldiers, which means his childhood includes wrestling, marching, and being everyone's worst roommate.
He reportedly learns camp habits fast, including the sacred military art of creating logistical problems in the shower area.
The stories say he liked beer and cigarettes, because apparently the army adopted a bear and the bear adopted the army's bad habits.
Wojtek's stats are confusing: morale support, cargo handling, emotional damage to enemy expectations, and snack theft. Then comes the bureaucratic problem. How do you move a bear with an army? Easy. You make him a soldier. Congratulations, Wojtek. You are now officially less imaginary than half the paperwork in this episode.
So Wojtek travels with the 2nd Polish Corps, becoming part mascot, part morale engine, part living camp legend.
But the reason he becomes famous is not camp comedy. It is Monte Cassino. At Monte Cassino, the supply lines are brutal, the terrain is awful, and the artillery needs ammunition constantly.
Wojtek watches the men lift crates, and because he is a bear raised by soldiers, he decides the correct response is to copy them.
And then the bear starts carrying artillery crates, because history looked at realism and said, no thanks.
This is the moment where the unit realizes its morale mascot has become a logistics upgrade.
Build update! Wojtek has unlocked cargo bear mode. This is not balanced. This is not even a class.
Was every version of the story perfectly literal? Maybe not. But the image of Wojtek carrying ammunition became unforgettable for a reason.
Behind the absurd image is a real unit under pressure, trying to keep artillery supplied in one of the war's hardest fights. The unit eventually embraces the image, a bear carrying a shell, because when your mascot becomes your logistics department, you commit to the brand.
Wojtek becomes a symbol of the unit, ridiculous, beloved, and somehow more useful than several actual humans.
Wojtek's final rating: morale S tier, cargo S tier, workplace safety absolutely unrecoverable.
After the war, the legend becomes quieter. The bear who marched with soldiers still needs a home.
He ends up remembered not just as a mascot, but as a strange little survivor of an impossible route through war.
A sniper ghost and an artillery bear. Already, this roster makes no sense, which is how you know history is involved.
Now the tone changes, because the next build is powerful, famous, and wrapped in propaganda.
Michael Wittmann is not here as a hero. He is here as a case study in skill, machinery, and myth-making.
Important note: fighting ability does not equal moral approval. The uniform matters. The cause matters. The propaganda matters.
June 13th, 1944. Near Villers-Bocage, a British column moves through terrain that is about to become a trap. From the British side, men like Sergeant Harris are not villains in a scoreboard. They are tired crews trying to survive a road they do not fully control. Wittmann sees an opportunity: exposed vehicles, confusion, and a Tiger tank built to punish mistakes brutally. Then the ambush begins, and for a few minutes the road turns into a boss arena. Nobody agreed to enter. For the crews, this is not a legend. It is noise, shock, smoke, and the instant realization that the road is killing them. The attack is sudden, violent, and devastating, which is exactly why the story becomes so easy to turn into myth.
Pause. This is where bad history channels start drooling over kill counts. We are not doing that.
There is the real battlefield event, and then there is the propaganda version that turns a dangerous man into a poster. The British did not simply vanish from the story. They fought back, regrouped, and complicated the neat little legend. The powerful machine is still a machine inside a town, and towns are very good at turning confidence into corners. The crews are scared, but fear does not mean helpless. They start adapting because survival is also a skill tree. Tiger advancing, what are your orders? It's flanking us, we need cover! Hold the line, fire on my mark.
And now the boss fight remembers that bosses can still take damage.
So yes, Wittmann was dangerous, but the clean legend is doing what propaganda always does, cropping out the inconvenient parts.
From the other side of the legend, the battle looks less like a highlight reel and more like men trying to stay alive.
Now we have our roster: the Ghost Scout, the Artillery Bear, and the Tank Boss wrapped in propaganda. Round 1, Stealth. Leo Major wins by turning a city into a rumor about himself.
His stealth rating is so high, the enemy started negotiating with a hallucination.
Round 2, Support Class. Wojtek wins because he is a bear with logistics proficiency, which should not be a sentence. Round 3, Firepower. Wittmann scores high, but the propaganda penalty is enormous.
No, Waldo, we are not giving everyone a crown. This is history, not a kindergarten tank museum.
Leo gets the stealth crown because liberating a city through psychological chaos is absurd even by this episode's standards.
Wojtek gets support class MVP because nothing boosts morale like realizing your supply chain has pause.
Wittmann gets the caution label because making Nazis look cool is exactly how propaganda respawns. That is the dangerous part of war stories. The cooler the story sounds, the easier it is to forget what side of the camera you are standing on. Every build has hidden costs. Friends lost, crews terrified, soldiers exhausted, and stories polished until the pain gets blurry. Leo's legend includes Willie Arsenal, because the story should not erase the friend whose loss changed the mission. Wojtek's legend includes the Polish soldiers who had already survived exile, movement, and the long, hard road to Italy.
Wittmann's legend includes the men on the receiving end, because a battlefield is not a highlight reel.
Fine, bonus round. Who is the most broken character here? The answer is not as simple as the thumbnail wants it to be.
Leo has the best solo mission energy. One man, one eye, one city, and an enemy convinced the whole lobby loaded in.
Wojtek has the best support energy. He is literally a morale boost with claws and questionable camp etiquette.
Wittmann has the most dangerous boss fight energy, but also the biggest propaganda contamination warning.
So no, not every impressive soldier story deserves the same kind of admiration.
Leo's story points toward liberation, risk, grief,
and a city spared from heavier destruction.
Wojtek's story points towards survival, absurd companionship, and a unit finding morale in the least expected shape possible. Wittmann's story points toward tactical danger, but also toward the way propaganda turns destruction into glamour.
There is no simple crown here. History is allergic to clean leaderboards.
Leo gets the ghost token, Wojtek gets the support token, Wittmann gets the warning label.
Waldo has selected chaos, which is historically accurate but mechanically unhelpful. This is why you do not let the intern run the roster.
But now comes the real question. Why do we love these stories so much? Because war is too huge to understand all at once, so our brains grab the strangest stories and turn them into handles.
Leo becomes the Ghost Scout because the real act is so strange that legend almost cannot resist it.
Wojtek becomes the soldier bear because sometimes the absurd is the only shape hope can wear.
Wittmann becomes the tank legend because propaganda knows exactly how to turn fear into fascination. The trick is to enjoy the story without letting the story erase the human cost. Behind every main character card are supporting characters who did not get the thumbnail. Willie Arsenault reminds us that a legend often begins with someone else's loss.
Pyotr Lewandowski reminds us that even the funniest war story sits on top of exhaustion, exile, and survival. Sergeant Harris reminds us that the other side of a tank ace story is a road full of terrified crews.
So yes, this episode has a character select screen, but the war itself did not come with respawns.
Most impossible solo mission, Leo Major. The man treated occupied Zwolle like a stealth puzzle with emotional damage. Most impossible support unit, Wojtek. The only soldier bear whose logistic stat sounds like a rejected cartoon pitch.
Most dangerous propaganda build, Michael Wittmann. Powerful story, toxic framing, handle with context.
Waldo has nominated himself for Best Supporting Gremlin, which is sadly not a historical category. Focus, tiny man. We are trying to discuss war, myth, and why the algorithm loves bears.
The truth is, the most broken build in war is not a scout, a bear, or a tank commander.
The most broken build is the machine that turns real people into simple legends before anyone can ask what was cropped out. It can turn courage into myth, survival into mascot branding, and war crimes into aesthetics if you let it. So enjoy the wild stories, but always pull the poster back and check who is standing behind it. With Leo, remember the city, the friend, and the grief underneath the impossible mission. With Wojtek, remember the displaced soldiers who somehow made room in the war for tenderness and absurdity. With Wittmann, remember that tactical skill can be real while the story built around it can still be poison.
All right, moral damage reduced. Back to the ridiculous part, because the bear still exists and I cannot emotionally move past that. Seriously, imagine being outperformed in the logistics by a bear who also may have stolen your beer.
And imagine how quickly a battlefield clip can become propaganda if nobody adds the warning label.
That is the showcase. One Ghost Scout, one Soldier Bear, and one tank legend that needs serious historical disinfectant.
Waldo wants to know who you would pick for your squad, and yes, he has already chosen the bear.
Drop your pick below, but if you choose the tank guy without context, Waldo will judge you silently. Look at him. That is the face of a mascot who has read the footnotes. If you want another roster, we can build a whole squad of history's weirdest soldiers, spies, pilots, and absolute maniacs.
Trust me, this roster gets much stranger. History has no balance patch.
For today, the roster is locked. Waldo, stop trying to steal the bear card. He says it is for research. It is not for research. So what did we learn? That real history can be more absurd than fiction, but fiction is exactly how history gets distorted.
The game interface is a joke. The people were real. The choices were real. The consequences were real.
So enjoy the absurdity, but do not let the absurdity make war look clean.
Some stories deserve admiration, some deserve caution, and some deserve both context and a locked cabinet.
If you like this character selection nightmare, subscribe before Waldo queues up the sequel without supervision.
Too late. He pressed it.
Waldo, no. We cannot legally summon another roster before the credits.
But now that the machine is awake, comment who should enter the next World War II character select. Today's roster: Ghost Scout, Soldier Bear, and Propaganda Tank Boss. History really needs supervision. Respect to Leo Major, the man who made stealth look like a diplomatic incident. Respect to Wojtek, the bear who made military logistics both stronger and significantly harder to explain. That is the showcase. Not clean, not simple, but definitely not boring.
Waldo demands your squad pick. He is tiny, but legally persistent.
Comment your pick: Leo Major, Wojtek, or the tank build you are only allowed to discuss with a footnote helmet. Now I am turning this off before Waldo unlocks the airborne goat division or something worse. Oh no, that one is real too. Fine, maybe next episode.
The story does not end as a clean, invincible rampage. It ends in confusion, damage, and a much messier battle than propaganda preferred. This build is powerful, but corrupted. Skill without moral context is how history becomes a recruitment poster.
Now for the final showcase verdict. Who is the most impossible character in this roster?
And imagine being so good at bluffing that an occupied city starts asking how many Canadians are hiding in the walls. Would you pick stealth, support, or raw tank danger with a giant moral warning sticker?
And context for Michael Wittmann, because tactical fear should never be mistaken for moral admiration.
3 builds, 3 lessons, 1 war that keeps proving reality has worse balance than any game.
He already has another card. Of course he does.
Subscribe for the next historical character select. Until then, remember, if history looks like a video game, check who wrote the rules.